I'd like to introduce you to Adrian Godas, who is a battery metals consultant at Fastmarket, and Trevor Hall, CEO of the Clear Commodity Network. Do you guys think gold, silver, copper, the precious metals are still a contrarian investment at this point? Because we've seen a good run in. Sorry? Thank you.
I absolutely think that gold and silver are still a contrarian investment. Despite the run-up in the gold price, we continue to see outflows out of the ETFs. That's a huge sign. We are not seeing the retail crowd come in and push the metals higher, or buy the metals and put it into their portfolios and trade it like they would the meme stocks. What we are seeing is a fundamental move. Smart money, institutional money, central banks coming in and buying at all costs, seeing something along in the horizon in front of us. So I would still consider gold and silver very much a contrarian effort, a contrarian trade, until your cab driver starts telling you how much you made.
I completely agree. If you ask any gold investor for the last 3 months, they will tell you, yeah, I have been trimming positions. Like everybody is taking profits. I think many gold developers are still trading at some good projects are still at 0.3 MPB, trading at good valuations at the spot price. So I think there are still many opportunities around. And on copper, it's exactly the same. I mean, how many big disruptions have we seen in the last few months between Camoa, Grasberg, all around the world? So I think it's more contrarian than people believe. To remain bullish.
Okay. And you, as a battery metal consultant,
yes.
What kind of metals are more contrarian than gold, silver,
yeah.
copper?
Yeah, I mean, battery metals in general are some of the worst performers. I think lithium is like flat year to date. Graphite is also have been performing very poor. Cobalt did great, but it's basically because just of Congo DRC policy changes. Nickel is also very poor performing. So I think it's some very truly contrarian bets that have not performed well, include, for example, nickel. I still think that a very good sulfide deposit, after Indonesia flooded the market with laterites and the new MPI to mate technology with the HPL, I think there is still a niche for very quality deposits. And for example, Centaurus Metals in Brazil, I think it's a good and developed project. I think lithium can be also a very contrarian project, especially on the brine side, like in Argentina. There are many good opportunities. I like Lithium Argentina, for example. I think it's a very interesting one with Ganfeng as a joint venture partner. And what else? Oil. It's not a battery metal, of course. It's the total opposite. I think oil is also very contrarian. If you see year to date, some of the worst performer commodities have been gasoline or the oil crude. So I think it's can be a very contrarian bet for 26.
I think oil is a wonderful contrarian trade right now.
Yes.
I think it's valuations at bottom. The price per barrel is just kind of flattening. People are really scared.
Yeah.
At least in the U.S. where I'm at, the rig counts have been going down week after week, but yet production continues to go higher and higher every week because they've gotten really good at producing barrels of oil, which helps drive down the price. There's obviously some political games out of OPEC, but listen, the world's, I vividly remember the spring of 2020 in COVID when we went negative oil.
Yeah. How to forget?
Like, think about that. We went negative oil.
Yeah. How to forget that?
And why was that? And that would have been the contrarian move of of a generation.
Yeah.
To see USO go negative, and you're sitting there scared, and you don't want to buy, and thinking that the world would never use oil again.
All the energy.
That's insane.
All the energy traders I know who participated during the 2020 market they are all retired now. after that deal.
Yeah.
After the 2020 and 2022 market.
Yeah. And I know we don't need to talk about oil, but I do think that's a real attention. But I think, like, Christian, the title of this is more like critical metals
Yep.
and the contrarian trade.
Yep.
And I have been thinking a lot about the use of the narrative critical metals. And I don't necessarily have an answer to where I'm going, so if you just bear with me. Why is this basket of metals critical? Well, quite frankly, it's critical because the dominant powers in the world, the developed countries, have done a really terrible job of developing those metals for the last 30 years. So now we're to a point to where the old way of doing, depending on China for production and for supply and for manufacturing, it's obviously coming to an end. So this basket of metals that we have lacked to invest in for 30 years, we're now at a headway. So now it's critical. They're not critical because we don't know where they are or we don't have a supply. It's critical because we failed in developing those projects. So that's on us. The other part of this critical materials is it gets lost in the narrative of electrification, EV battery material. And in the US, when the Trump administration, Trump 2.0 came in, it really felt like, okay, we're going to take a step away from the electrification of the world, renewable energy, electric vehicles. Well, the market's telling you something different. There is continued growing demand for electric vehicles. There's growing demand for sustainable, renewable energy. And if there was anything that really just made me stop and think a little bit was you had this messaging coming out of the White House that we're going to focus more on fossil fuels. But then 8 months later, you have the US government taking in equity stakes in lithium deposit.
In Thacker Pass.
Yeah, in Thacker Pass. And so where is the narrative? Like, where is it a signal or is it noise? And I think, so that's kind of where I've been thinking wholeheartedly about this, is that it's critical because we failed, and we are now rushing to to fix the supply chain, which cannot be done, in a matter of months or years. It will take decades. So that's how I'm kind of looking at this.
Following that line of thinking, it's very interesting because people don't know, but more than 50 years ago, the largest rare earth producer in the world was US, United States. The Americans had the best separation and refining technology for rare earth. And now Trump is saying, we need to create a new supply chain again.
Right.
So it's, sadly, we basically failed.
Yeah.
Completely.
That whole knowledge, specifically the processing of rare earths, because we have punted that to China for 30 or 40 years, there's a real brain drain. We do not know how to appropriately in bulk process these rare earths. Now, listen, I think the ingenuity of U.S. creative destruction with knowledge of, I think there's a lot of capabilities within the European Union, especially Germany and their incredible track record of manufacturing and building things there's probably some unity there to where we can figure this out, but it will take quite a bit of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I usually tell the clients that, because everybody asks us in fast markets, why China is so dominant on battery making. It's because of the money, because the state, the subsidies. I tell them, it's just because we don't know. It's not the lack of funding. Everybody's excited to build gigafactories and now a cathode making plant. But the thing is, we just don't know. We don't have chemical. You go to a chemical engineering university, and most of the people just don't know how to make a battery. The chemical engineering in a cathode is extremely complicated, extremely difficult to replicate. So, for example, China is not just restricting the exports of the cathodes, but the technology to produce those cathodes. That know-how, that IP, is a really valuable knowledge, and we just don't have. in the West. So for right now, the only country who can make have a big battery making capacity outside China is Korea. It's the only one. In US, Europe, we are still thinking about it. Even we are discussing which chemistries to use, where is the supply chain, where will we build a lithium refinery. So yeah, the big gap is just technology, know-how. Because if you see, for example, in metallurgy, 80% of the global papers published are Chinese. Like for gold metallurgy, copper metallurgy, even material engineering, 80% are produced in China. Even if they are translated to English, they are originally published in China, because they are still focused on those segments at the university, and we completely forgot about them. During the LME week, I attended one of the Chinese conference, and the contrast versus the Western focus conference were amazing, because the Nickel Institute, the International Copper Association conference, were talking about recycling, ESG, and the Chinese were like, oh, we are building an institute just for research and development of superconductors. We are looking for how to create a drilling machine to go even more deeper, like pure technological focus. So still the mindset, I think in the West, we need to change first the mindset above all.
Right.
So I think us three, we consider ourselves contrarian investors. Mm-hmm. What metals are you looking at now, critical metal-wise, as a contrarian investor? What would you recommend the public to look at now?
Listen, I think, especially coming from the US, and we've seen an influx of capital from the federal government, specifically the Department of War, formerly the Department of Defense. Not only providing loans and capital to advance projects, but also taking equity positions. And what we have seen for that is the market reaction is to basically run those things hot for the next 3 days. I would argue that just because we have a push forward by the federal government to bring supply of critical minerals to our supply chains doesn't mean that the investment community stops using critical thinking. We have seen administrations for many, many years misallocate capital to the wrong projects, to the wrong endeavors. Why would this be any different?
Like what?
Again, solar panel farms from the Obama administration, just to give you an example. It happens all the time. So why would this be any different? So I do not understand, I personally do not understand why the US federal government took a position in Thacker Pass. I can understand why they took a position in the Stibnite project in Idaho, because they want the antimony. So the antimony has definitely been a key driver of speculation in markets, because we know that the US government needs to refill the resources for munitions. I don't necessarily consider that a contrarian play anymore. We've seen them take positions in rare earths, neodymium, dysprosium magnets, with their position in Mountain Pass, which has also failed every company before. That same project, the rocks haven't changed, but people have gone bankrupt. The US government now has a position in that. Now, is neodymium, dysprosium a contrarian play? We haven't seen any movement or another deal in neodymium dysprosium in the US, but it is out there. There are ideas. I think that is possibly contrarian, even though a couple positions that I have in speculation have started to come off a little bit. I actually really like uranium. I think that allure has come off a little bit. A lot of those equities have come way off their highs. They're kind of hanging out and consolidating here. That there will be a move towards creating huge AP1000 nuclear reactors. It's going to take a lot of money, but once those are built, it will require fuel. That fuel will require us either reaching out across the ocean to other countries we don't find very friendly, or looking to Canada, maybe amending ties there, making that relationship better, or supplying it from the United States. So I like uranium probably most of all as a contrarian critical thing.
Okay.
And that's not even that contrarian.
Yeah.
But I think it's forgotten because when we think critical minerals, we think rare earths and graphite, and, but they just put uranium on the critical minerals list, and so.
Yeah.
I mean, silver is on there, right?
And silver's on there too.
Well, what about you, Adrian?
Yes. Well, I like those. I agree on this definitely, but
You mentioned nickel.
yeah,
lithium.
nickel definitely I think is very contrarian because everybody thinks that it will be perpetually floated by the Indonesians, but that can change very fast. I mean, the Indonesian producers are under a lot of pressure after they increased the royalty in Indonesia, plus the sulfuric acid prices increased. So there's a lot of pressure. Many of them are close to break even. Even Norilsk nickel, which tends to be like very moderate on nickel forecast, they see some green roots for first time in many years. So can be a very, very truly contrarian bet on nickel. Also, following on rare earth, the problem is that we talk about rare earth, and then people say, but they are not actually rare. Well, some of them, they really are. Like, they're very rare. Like, only 5 ppm, like 5 parts per million in deposits, even on rare earth deposits. So they can be very rare. And the light ones, like neodymium, praseodymium, I think the West have more than enough. I'm not really bullish of them, but we still lack a lot about heavies, like terbium, samarium, dysprosium. Those are still the very rare.
Metals nobody's ever heard of.
Never, no. Euripium, promethium, there are like many rare ones. So heavy mineral rare earth are still very rare, only mined in China and Myanmar. And the only way that we get them, I think it's Brazil, ionic clays. So they have performed extremely well. So it's not a really contrarian, but the contrarian bet is still think they are early. Because we need those clays to get the heavy rare earths. I think also that nickel can be very contrarian. Well, also too, but it's not a metal. Yeah, and I agree also with about the uranium.
Okay.
It's funny with those with our 3-week rare earth trend we had in the markets. That obviously that came on, and then there was spectacular, no bid for any of these equities, so they come off super quick because there's a 1-year truce negotiation between the U.S. and China. I was reading that headline. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the hell is the point?
Yes.
1 year is not even enough time for the U.S. to even bring on supply chains of these rare earths that are coming from China. The magnets that's been so important for the dawn. And who's to say that something doesn't happen in 4 months, 3 months time that China comes back and says, no, we're going to put more export controls on these rocks. I just kind of shook my head and said this isn't enough. I think the White House needed some sort of win at that period of time, and that was the best they can do. But so those rare earth equities have come off from that. But I mean, I see it as a potential for maybe some accumulation until you actually get a real meaningful trade negotiation with all parties signing on the paper, and there's actually functionality from it.
Do you know how long it takes to ramp up a solvent extraction plant, which is for separate?
Probably longer than you've been alive.
Almost. Yeah. An expert told me that for a solvent extraction plant, like to match adjust the purities, the grades, it takes 3 to 5 years to adjust just the purities and grades to reach commercial production. Like imagine 5 years to achieve commercial production on a magnet facility. So people think, there is no restrictions from China for 1 year. Problem solved. This will take many years, because China have been doing research and processing, like rare earth separation takes more than 200 steps, individual steps. And you need like to adjust the solvents and the chemicals on each step to split each rare earth. So that process learning, you cannot catch up in 1 year or 2. That's something that you need decades. So it's not over for many of these critical minerals. We see the same with tungsten, which is still, every time I check, every week, it's still keep climbing higher. So
that's a good one, tungsten. We've seen an increase in companies acquiring tungsten asset and even
Anyway,
investors talking about tungsten. What's your opinion on tungsten? What do you think about the fundamentals for the next coming years?
Definitely, we didn't see the peak yet. I mean,
Sorry?
We didn't see the peak yet. I think the price can...
We haven't seen the peak.
No. I think it can still go higher, in my opinion. Shandong mine in South Korea is entering in production. I think that will be very determinant for tungsten, because if that mine underperform, the crunch for Western supply will be massive. Like China is currently importing tungsten concentrates because they don't have enough internally. China is importing tungsten concentrate. If that mine disappoints in Korea, we will have a big problem in the West. I know some anecdotes, like people with some containers that are still a trap in China because of the restrictions. They cannot get the tungsten out of the country because they were doing transshipping in China. So tungsten story is not over yet, neither.
Okay.
What do you think the tungsten price can go to? It's up near 8,000 now.
You are in the business, you tell me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can reach 1,000? Maybe. Can reach 1,000, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The two of you represent the contrarian way of thinking about whatever. I'm confused. Your twin brother, who is not contrarian, use other information or other technique of analysis to do a market research or to do a forecasting. I doubt it. Take gold. Let's assume each of you have a twin brother who is non-contrarian. Would he use other tools, other toolboxes, other sources of information to cast his forecast?
Oh, probably.
I don't understand what contrarian is actually.
Well, contrarian.
We all use the same information which is on hand. Question if it is correct.
Yeah.
Question if our analysis is correct.
Yeah.
We are all pupils of Socrates. Okay? And then cast our opinion, and we may be right or wrong.
Yeah.
What is the difference between the contrarian and non-contrarian?
Well, you can be wrong. You can be early and wrong.
Yes.
You can be early and wrong, and you can be late and right, right? So early and it depends on your conviction, right? Like in your time frame. Like, were you buying gold when it was $800 an ounce?
How much?
800?
No.
No? Why not?
800?
When it was $800 an ounce, were you buying gold?
I bought it when it was 1,200. I thought that it didn't change.
Yeah.
I sold it, and I waited until
But
there was a renaissance in gold.
and when it was 1,200, it was hated. When it was $1,200 an ounce, gold was hated.
Yeah.
That was a contrarian play. That was you made a contrarian investor.
No, I had a mistake. I assumed it would go up, but I used.
Oh, you sold?
What is a different tool? What is a different tool? No, I bought for this money Palantir at the time.
Hola.
Money I bought Tesla and make it factor of 5. I allocate my sum of money in the fields in which I thought, right or wrong, will go up.
So
But I don't know what contrarian thinking
Look,
is.
don't worry. Basically, the concept of contrarian investor was born in the 2000s because of a certain book called Contrarian Investing was written by a guy called Letterman, I think. and he went bankrupt in 2008 because he bought banks. Because everybody was hating the banks. Oh, they're going bankrupt. So everybody sold and said, oh, I'm buying banks because they are trading at the PE 3. Yeah, and they went bankrupt. So they lost the money. So contrarian before being contrarian.
If contrarian in your language, in your definition, is not going after the masses, I mean the herd, and listen to it, then we, the non-contrarian, are the same. We are all
We are all contrarian. Yeah.
of Aristo and Platon and the whole gang. We analyze everything. The facts, are they true? Are not true? Analysis, right or wrong? Ramification, right, wrong, and then we cast our opinion.
Yes.
Sure.
Simon, you had a question.
Yeah, the question is very, very simple. A year ago, 2 years ago, we didn't have the Trump 2.0 and now the China rare earth retaliation. And so to be a rare earth investor back then was probably contrarian.
Yeah.
Now things have flipped. It doesn't matter if it's contrarian anymore. Does the wider investment community see rare earths as a viable investment?
Yes. I have talked to multiple,
As a strategic
and my in my
not just an investment,
yeah.
speculative. This is, you need to be in this because.
So there's a great.
The US dollars against the Russians.
Yeah, well, so that's a good story. Like, and I have an anecdotal story. So I was talking to a soccer parent on, my son's, football training, and a foosball. And I was talking to this gentleman, another father, and we were kind of talking about, life and stuff. And he said, oh yeah, when Trump came in, I bought rare earths and critical metal, like specific companies and equities, and loaded up. And I was like, that's interesting. Why did you do that? Because it was obvious he was going to win, and that's everything he was preaching about throughout the campaign. So he loaded up, and he made a killing. I don't know if he sold in this move or not. I haven't followed up with him. But that was evidence to me that the general mass, people who are really paying attention and trying to find those angles, were moving in that direction. I don't think it was the day traders buying zero-dated puts or calls on NVIDIA that were piling in to rare earths. Maybe they did that after the news to play some momentum. But I don't think they were doing it, leading up to Trump 2.0. If that helps answer your question. So I think there's anecdotally like people who did position themselves.
Yeah, it's more to find out. So there's a range of rare earth companies out there, junior mining companies, exploration companies. So the task is, from your perspective, from a battery metals point of view, are these companies starting to get more traction from the asset managers that would usually just do iron? Are they starting to go more for nickel and the more refined things?
Yeah, there's a lot of interest. And just to give a data point, right now the rare earth prices spread between Western prices, like the rare earths already in US, Europe, and Chinese prices, is more than double and triple. In some cases, it's 4 times higher. So there is a real spread, and some markets like Ethereum are really tight, like really, really tight, like more than 3 times spread. Well, there's a lot of interest for real. And if you can be the first to go to production and produce some of these metals, you will make many investors very happy. Definitely.
One last question. We've got 1 minute left, Colin.
Just ask the panel's view on vanadium.
Vanadium. That's a really contrarian bet also. That's really contrarian. Didn't move at all. It's still at only $5 per pound. That's really contrarian. There is a vertical for batteries growing a lot, for the B redox batteries, which is growing more than 20% per year. It's growing a lot. It's still a small market, I think 10% of the global demand. It's growing very fast. And it's a very, very interesting market. That's a truly contrarian one. If you have patience, I think can pay out. But the problem is that most of the demand is was for Chinese construction, because vanadium is used for rebar, which is very construction dependent in the steel market. So it's still very weak. We maybe need to see some extra cuts on supply. But if you have patience, that can be a big contrarian bet. Yeah.
Thanks, Trevor and Adrian. To sum it up a bit, for Trevor, it's uranium as a contrarian bet, and for Adrian, nickel
Let's say
and
nickel,
vanadium.
Nickel or lithium. Yeah.
Nickel and lithium?
Yeah. Let's.
Okay.
I might steal the vanadium idea.
But vanadium is maybe still. Yeah.